What's up, everybody? It's fucking Ronald Squeezely back again. And this video took fucking forever to make because I got sick. And my voice sounded like even more of a dumpster fire than it usually does. So I originally recorded it and I listened to it and it sounded awful. So now that I'm not sick, I re-recorded it. And here we go. I am here to talk about a topic that a little buddy of mine wanted to be discussed, and that is comparing Piccolo and Vegeta throughout Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super, because obviously Vegeta wasn't around in Dragon Ball. Let me make a few things clear before I get into this. I'm not comparing Piccolo and Vegeta's characters, like their personality and their relevancy. That's fucking retarded and nobody cares about that. Everyone just wants to know about their power levels, right? So anyway, I'm going to be using Akira Toriyama's original manga and Toyotaro's Dragon Ball Super manga, not the anime versions. I might use a couple power levels from the Weekly Jump or Daizenshuu if there isn't something in the manga, but you don't have to go by those levels if you don't think they're necessary. You can find those levels on Kanzenshu's website if you want to investigate more, or you think I'm lying for whatever reason. Probably because you're a cunt. One more thing, I fully admit I'm more of a Vegeta fan than a Piccolo fan, but for this I'm going to be as objective as I can. Right, so let's get into this. At the start of Z, Piccolo had a power level recorded on the Scouter of 322. That's with his weights on. With his weights off, he was boosted up to 408. There's this weird thing after the Raditz fight where his power level goes up to 329, but I think that was just an oversight by Toriyama, so it really doesn't factor into this. At this point, Vegeta wasn't really in the story yet. Like, he was kind of introduced, but he's just a background player right now. So, but when we do see him, when he finally shows up with Nappa, he's got a power level of 18,000, which is ridiculously high compared to anything else we'd seen in the series up to this point. Since Vegeta had pretty much been in hypersleep from about the time Raditz was killed until he showed up on Earth, I doubt he was doing anything too laborious that would increase his power level by a lot. So I'm going to assume he was still at about 18,000 when Raditz died. So we have our first comparison, which would put Vegeta at 18,000 and Piccolo at 408. And think about the difference there. That's a 44 times difference. In other words, Piccolo is a whopping 2% of Vegeta's power. That's hilarious. Moving on to the Saiyan battle, Piccolo had been training with Gohan for almost a year. I think the Saiyans got there a little earlier than a year. And Piccolo had a suppressed power level recorded at 1,220. His full power level was never given in the manga, but the Daizenshuu lists him at 3,500. Even though I don't personally agree with that number, I'm going to use it here just so we have something to go off of. Of course, Vegeta's at 18,000 still, so even though Piccolo got 8.5 times stronger after Raditz's death, he still ended up about 5 times weaker than Vegeta. That seems like an impressive gain, I guess, going from 44 times weaker to 5 times weaker. But percentage-wise, that still only makes Piccolo 20% of Vegeta's power. So Piccolo gets killed by Nappa, he goes to train with King Kai. Full disclosure, I can't say King Kai's Japanese name for the fucking life of me, so I'm sticking to his English dub name for now. So Piccolo gets there, he does his thing for all of 6 days before being wished back to help fight Frieza on Namek. When he gets to Namek, he finds Nail, who heavily implies that he is a goddamn beast. Piccolo, I mean. Nail has a recorded power level of 42,000, and he is just gushing over Piccolo's power. So to put that in simple terms, Piccolo went from 3,500 to at least 42,000 in 6 days. Keep in mind, all we saw him doing in that time frame was meditating, because he didn't want any part of King Kai or training with the humans. He was still kind of an asshole at that time. Things start to get a little messy at this point because everybody's leapfrogging each other with Zenkais and transformations and potential unlocks and shit like that. Vegeta gets a Zenkai after his battle on Earth, which puts him at 24,000. He kills Queen Dodoria. He gets the shit beat out of him by Monster Zarbon, so he gets another Zenkai, and that puts him at just under 30,000, but we're gonna round up to 30,000 just because. And that's enough to beat Zarbon. The Ginyu Force shows up, Vegeta fights Recoome and he loses, so he gets another Zenkai. A lot of fans debate his power after this Zenkai because it's not recorded in the manga, so we just have his feats to go off of. Some fans think he needs to be close to First Form Frieza because he was able to fight on par with him for a while, and other fans think that the V-Jump level of 250,000 is just fine because gaps are meaningless. Alright, so backing up a little, when Nail gushes over Piccolo's power, he also says something significant. He says it's a shame that Piccolo isn't fused with Kami anymore, because if he was, he might be able to beat Frieza. Don't forget, Frieza told Nail that his full power was 530,000, so Nail does know what he's talking about. Some fans have theorized that Piccolo and Kami are two halves of a whole, and if his whole being could possibly be stronger than Frieza's first form, then if you divide that level in half, that 530,000 figure, you get Piccolo's power here, or thereabout. If we assume this merged being would be equal to First Form Frieza at 530,000, and we divide that in half, we get Piccolo being at 265,000. I would say that's a fairly significant power level for just 6 days of meditating. That would mean he got 75 times stronger on King Kai's planet if we use that 3,500 figure from the Daizenshu. Using the 265,000 figure, that would make Piccolo a bit stronger than the 250,000 V-Jump figure for Vegeta. The Frieza fight progresses, and Vegeta gets another Zenkai, his last Zenkai on Namek. So that makes 4 Zenkais for Vegeta. There's no number given for this Zenkai, of course, but we can deduce that he's much stronger than Piccolo using the fights with Piccolo and Frieza and Vegeta. The Zenkai makes him strong enough to track 4th Form Frieza's movements, which Piccolo couldn't do. Piccolo was severely outclassed by 3rd Form Frieza, so you can see that if Vegeta can track 4th Form Frieza, that would logically imply Vegeta is now stronger than Piccolo. Of course, a lot of people will say that Vegeta is a cocky bastard who's always proven wrong and he just talks out of his ass, but those people generally don't look at the context of those losses. I won't get into too much of that in this video, but for this situation specifically, I have to point out that Vegeta loses against Frieza because Frieza increases his speed and presumably his power. Before Frieza does this, Vegeta has no trouble keeping up with Frieza. Yeah, Vegeta loses, but he loses because of something he couldn't have predicted. And that's the crux of all these arguments that anything Vegeta says shouldn't be trusted. Anyway, back to the comparison. So we know Piccolo couldn't even keep up with 3rd Form Frieza, while Vegeta is keeping up with 4th Form Frieza until the latter increases his speed. From that, we can logically deduce that Vegeta would absolutely stomp Piccolo if the two had fought at this time. Moving forward to when Future Trunks shows up, this is probably the closest Piccolo and Vegeta will ever be in the series. Gohan asks Piccolo if he's been training intensely every day, and Piccolo replies, "More or less." While that's a confirmation that he has been training, it's not a confirmation that he's been training intensely every single day, or that probably would have been confirmed a little more clearly. After that, Bulma interjects that Vegeta's always off training in the afternoon, so we know he's been training as well. Since both of them trained after Namek between Trunks' arrival, the logical thing to do would be to keep the status quo of Vegeta being noticeably stronger than Piccolo. However, there are a couple items of discussion that could conceivably point to the gap between them being smaller than it was on Namek. For one, and this is the one that people bring up the most, Vegeta attacks Piccolo verbally about being the least confident fighting the androids, and Piccolo challenges Vegeta to a fight. At face value, this does imply that Piccolo and Vegeta are close enough in power that Piccolo thinks he could possibly win the fight. But back to what I was saying, Piccolo and Vegeta are probably pretty close in power here, given their exchange, but Vegeta is definitely the stronger of the two. Let me explain the status quo a little bit more, because I know some people don't really understand that concept. So, Vegeta was a lot stronger on Namek, that much we know, and then both of them trained in between Namek and Trunks. So without anything to tell us otherwise, Vegeta would logically still be the stronger of the two. To argue that Piccolo should be stronger now just because doesn't make any sense from a logical standpoint. It would be like arguing that Yamcha is stronger than Krillin during the Saiyan fight just because. I mean, obviously that's ignoring scouter numbers, but you get the point. I didn't really explain that status quo part too much, I guess, but hopefully you got what I was trying to say. We get to the android battles, and Piccolo's gotten so strong that Krillin compares him to a fucking Super Saiyan. Piccolo himself says that he's confident fighting these androids that could stomp the shit out of future Trunks, who in turn beat the hell out of Mecha Frieza with ease. For someone who wasn't even as strong as base future Trunks just 3 years earlier, that is another really good power increase. Piccolo shows us that he is as strong as a Super Saiyan by easily beating the piss out of Android 20, who was strong enough to at least make Piccolo consider if the Z Squad had gotten too strong for people that could beat Trunks. By this point, Vegeta's a Super Saiyan as well, and he's said to be even stronger than a healthy Super Saiyan Goku would be. Piccolo first wonders this after Vegeta trashes Android 19, and then he pretty much confirms it when Vegeta goes off to fight Android 18. Piccolo would be one of the only 3 people to know how strong a healthy Goku would be. The other 2 being Gohan and of course Goku himself. And he would know this because he trained with Goku for those 3 years between Frieza's death and the android showing up. If he says Vegeta's stronger than Goku, it's probably true. As far as comparing Vegeta and Piccolo goes, there are 2 statements made that kind of do this for us. The first is a statement from Ten Shinhan after the fight with the androids goes horribly wrong, in which case he says a healthy Goku likely wouldn't be too much different in power compared to Trunks and Vegeta. He doesn't include Piccolo in that little power grouping. The second statement comes from Kami, who laments that things have gotten pretty dire, and he brings up Trunks and Vegeta as powerful warriors who still couldn't take down the androids. Again, Piccolo is not included in that top rung of the ladder. Piccolo himself basically admits that he's not as strong as Trunks too. After the android fight, he tries to make Krillin feel better by saying that even Trunks was helpless against the androids. And when a character includes the word even in their statements, it's usually an indicator that that character is stronger, or just more important, but usually it's strength related, because this is Dragon Ball Z and power is everything. So by all accounts, Piccolo during the android battle is noticeably weaker than Super Saiyan Vegeta. Piccolo goes and merges with Kami so he can take out the androids, but before he fights them, he encounters Cell at Ginger Town. He's clearly superior to Cell, even though he's suppressed, and while this is going on, Android 16 senses the battle on his little built-in scouter. 16 says that 2 people are fighting and one of them rivals the androids. Obviously that would be Piccolo. So we know a suppressed Piccolo is strong enough to rival the androids, and Cell is not. A little side note here is that Cell was also implied to be stronger than the Super Saiyans at this point too. Trunks sensed him and he called his power stupendous, and Vegeta's look of absolute shock really says it all. Cell doesn't have to be leagues ahead of the Super Saiyans, but he should be stronger, and he was no match for Piccolo, who is later able to fight equally with Android 17, who is stronger than Android 18, who kicked Super Saiyan Vegeta's ass. It's safe to say Vegeta doesn't compare to Piccolo anymore, until Vegeta trains in the Room of Spirit and Time, or the Rosette to keep things simple, and he gets a lot stronger. He's able to make a fool out of Semi-Perfect Cell, who was strong enough to tank physical hits from Android 16, who was equal to Imperfect Cell after absorbing a bunch of humans, who was strong enough to tank Piccolo's light grenade, which was strong enough to make Android 17 jump for cover rather than using his protective barrier. Hopefully you were able to keep up with that. If you weren't, in simple terms, it means that Vegeta using Super Saiyan Grade 2 is now more than likely strong enough to tank anything Piccolo can throw at him. Trunks implied that even regular Super Saiyan Vegeta could take out suppressed Semi-Perfect Cell, and he's the one that tanked Android 16's punch. Piccolo uses the Rosette too, and this is where things start to get really difficult to compare as far as the minor details go. Overall, it's easy to see who's stronger between the two, but When Piccolo gets out of the Rosette, Goku starts talking to him like he's gotten a lot stronger, he's so awesome. But Piccolo sees right through this crap talk and tells him to cut the bullshit because he knows he's no match for Cell. Cell by this point is in his perfect form and he's already beaten the shit out of Vegeta and embarrassed Trunks. Trunks looks shocked when Goku agrees that Piccolo really is trash compared to Cell. To add some perspective, Goku at this point has shown off 50% of his full power and admitted that it still isn't enough to beat Cell. Nobody but Gohan and Korin know that it's only half of his full power, so everybody else is thinking that this great savior Goku can't get the job done. Some fans argue that because Trunks is shocked when Goku says Piccolo can't beat Cell, that it's an implication that Piccolo actually is stronger than 50% Mastered Super Saiyan Goku, or at the very least on that general level. Other fans argue that Trunks' shock stems from Goku being so blunt about it. You can read that scene and decide for yourself. The next piece of evidence for Piccolo's power comes from the fight with the Cell Juniors. Piccolo is one of the only 3 Z fighters still standing before Gohan attacks the Cell Juniors, the other 2 being Vegeta and Trunks. A common argument is that Piccolo must be close to Vegeta and Trunks, who are practically equal now, or he would have been eating dirt like the humans and Goku. One counter to this argument is that the Cell Juniors weren't going for the kill because the humans weren't immediately dusted. Another counter is that Vegeta and Trunks are the only ones stated by Cell to be able to fight back, but if you look at the way Herms translated the line that Cell says, it doesn't necessarily exclude Piccolo from being on that level. It just says that Vegeta and Trunks were basically the first ones that came to mind. Another argument is that Piccolo could just be strong enough to withstand being brutally beaten like the humans. So like there are levels in this fight. Level 1 being the humans, level 2 being tired Goku, level 3 being Trunks and Vegeta. And then Piccolo would be like 2.5 in between tired Goku and Vegeta and Trunks. For the sake of brevity, I'll let you look at the scene and decide for yourself how you want to interpret things. Like I already mentioned, Vegeta is one of the only 2 people stated by Cell that are able to fight back against the Cell Juniors. He used the Rosette a second time, and visually he looks like a regular Super Saiyan rather than Grade 2. An interesting thing to note here is that Vegeta is the only member of the Z Squad that we actually see land a hit on a Cell Junior, other than Gohan, obviously. The humans are almost immediately taken out, Goku's getting his ass smacked around, Trunks' kick is blocked, although we can put him on the same level as Vegeta by way of statements and status quo, and we don't see Piccolo's fight up close to get an idea of how well he's doing. At best, you would only be able to put Piccolo at rivaling range with Vegeta. Finally, we get to the Buu Saga, and Piccolo pretty much becomes a babysitter and he takes a backseat to the action. I know, it's unfortunate. We can assume he's been training since the Cell games because that's in character for him to do, but we're given no idea how strong he's actually gotten since then. He's only ever compared to East Kaioshin during the 25th Tenkaichi Budokai, and that in itself is a controversial topic for a lot of people. That debate is best suited for another video, but for this video I will simply go the easiest route, which is Piccolo being weaker than East Kaioshin. The manga has a pattern of using different dimension as a way of saying one character is stronger than another, and Daizenshuu 7 says East Kaioshin is stronger than Piccolo as well. You may disagree, and that's fine, but for the sake of progressing this video, I'm going to take that route. Unlike Piccolo, Vegeta gets a ton of focus in the Buu Saga, so it's easy to figure out how strong he is. He is introduced as wondering how strong he's gotten compared to Gohan now, before he knows how weak Gohan actually got. He knows Gohan hasn't been training, but he doesn't know how bad it is until the tournament. When Goku decides to enter the tournament too, Vegeta rejoices and he's confident that he can win, even though he knows that Goku has been training in Otherworld this whole time too. After Deborah attacks the group outside Babidi's ship, Vegeta isn't really impressed by Deborah, and he implies that he could take him down if he wanted to. Vegeta ends up fighting Thunderlips, and he obliterates him Exodia style without even using Super Saiyan. When Gohan's fighting Deborah, Vegeta gets all pissy and he says he's just gonna go in and finish the fight for him, acting like it's not a big deal, and Gohan's giving it all he's got with Super Saiyan. or Super Saiyan 2, whichever side you're on. So for Vegeta to be so nonchalant about it speaks to how superior Vegeta is compared to Gohan. For reference, East Kaioshin is scared shitless of Dabura, which would also mean that Piccolo would be no match for him. Vegeta of course has Super Saiyan 2 now, and he fights equally with Super Saiyan 2 Goku. When Vegeta is fighting Fat Buu, Piccolo watches from the sidelines and he remarks that Vegeta is perhaps stronger than Super Saiyan 2 Gohan from the Cell games. He says perhaps instead of something more concrete like definitely. This means that while Vegeta is stronger than Kid Gohan, it isn't by any large amount, otherwise Piccolo would have been able to tell immediately who the stronger person was. So already you can kind of get the idea that Vegeta is just ridiculously strong compared to Piccolo, but it gets a whole lot worse. Moving into Dragon Ball Super, the official continuation of Akira Toriyama's original work, there is no exact date given for when Super starts after Majin Buu is killed, but the general consensus is about 3 or 4 years after that, so I'll be sticking to that. The Battle of Gods arc is rather short, and Piccolo doesn't fight anyone. Of course, we'll assume he's still been training since Majin Buu, but again, we don't know how strong he's gotten, and we don't get any comparison with Piccolo and another character other than Beerus. But Beerus is so far above everybody that it's just a given that Piccolo would get his ass kicked. Vegeta initially is fearful of Beerus, like anybody would be, but eventually he does fight him as a Super Saiyan 2. Going by feats, he actually does better than Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and Super Saiyan 3 Goku. He's able to withstand Beerus's punches and knock Beerus back with attacks of his own, something Goku and Gotenks were utterly unable to do. The movie and the anime had a line from Roshi stating that Vegeta was even stronger than Goku, which would be comparing Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta to Super Saiyan 3 Goku, if we take that at face value. But for whatever reason, this wasn't included in the manga, so we can't use it here to solidify Vegeta's strength. But like I said, his feats kind of do that for us. I just want to clarify before I move on that this is an unusual moment for Vegeta in that he's clearly being powered up through rage, much like Gohan, rather than this just being his natural Super Saiyan 2 power, because it would be kind of weird if Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta was now stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku and nobody would make a big deal out of it. There is a line by Krillin, who is watching the battle between Vegeta and Beerus, and he wonders when Vegeta got this strong, but it's not the same as Roshi saying Vegeta has surpassed Goku. We don't know how strong Piccolo is right now, except that he's obviously stronger than he was 3 years ago, but it's obvious that he is still weaker than Gotenks and Goku, who Vegeta just passed up with his rage. The manga skips the whole resurrection of Frieza arc completely. Who knows what went on during that shit show? All we're told is that Frieza came back and he was defeated with Super Saiyan Blue. I'm assuming that nothing really changed except Vegeta got Super Saiyan Blue, which would obviously increase the gap between him and Piccolo to an astounding amount. For the tournament against Universe 6, Piccolo is actually chosen as one of the members for Universe 7. It's good to see him get some recognition after being sidelined at the start of the Buu saga, but he doesn't get much to do here either. He's only used to weaken Frost so that Vegeta can get an easy win. Piccolo asks what his chances are against Frost after Goku's eliminated, and Goku's pretty blunt, saying that he doesn't stand a chance at all. Piccolo even admits that he can't beat Frost, but then he says that Frost can't beat him either. This is mostly true. Despite Frost being weakened from fighting Goku, Piccolo is on the defensive against him the whole time, and Vegeta states Piccolo is losing energy faster than Frost is. Piccolo is then knocked out by Frost's poison needle, which ends Piccolo's involvement in the manga until we get to the Tournament of Power with this month's release. The good thing about this particular battle is that even if we factor in Frost being weakened, he should still logically be stronger than his third form, and Piccolo was somewhat able to fight evenly with him. It's all but stated that Goku wouldn't have been able to do that without Super Saiyan, so we can conclude that Piccolo is at least stronger than base Goku and Vegeta. Vegeta takes out Frost easily with Super Saiyan, and the fight probably would have gone the same way regardless if Frost was tired or not, because we saw earlier that Frost was visibly inferior to Super Saiyan Goku, and Vegeta and Goku are supposed to be equal at this point. So probably the last comparison we get out of this series so far is that Vegeta is a lot stronger than Piccolo because he could easily take out fourth form Frost, while Piccolo was somewhat disadvantaged against a tired and weakened fourth form Frost. I think you get the idea that Vegeta is several dimensions above Piccolo at this point, and considering the manga's consistency with power scaling and following Toriyama's work, that isn't going to change even in the Tournament of Power. I could be proven wrong, but I'm pretty confident about this. Anyway, that's Piccolo and Vegeta compared throughout Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super. As the story began to focus more on the Saiyans, Piccolo was pretty much left in the dust, reduced to the same level as the humans. He's still incredibly powerful, just not when you factor in the Saiyans, the villains, and everybody introduced in Super so far. From the start of the Cell games up to the current arc, Piccolo would be easily defeated by Vegeta using Super Saiyan or above. Hey, if you liked that video, hit the like button and drop a comment below. If you didn't like the video, let me know in the comment section why you didn't. If you would like to stay up to date with my videos, you can subscribe to my channel, but it's up to you. One final thing I'd like to say is you can suck my middle finger and have the day you deserve, you little beta cucks.